Hello and welcome to this video about the task list and time capture features in our mobile solutions for Business Central. Both the task list and the time capture feature are manufacturing related. I'm going to show you the task list, first the setup and then how they work, and then the time capture feature, both the setup and then how it works. In Business Central, I start with going to administration and mobile manufacturing user setup. This is where you can define what operations are going to show up in what task list for what user. A typical approach for setting up the task list for each of the devices is to have users that represent the device. So you can have something like a tablet 1 user and a tablet 2 user. Then through the setup you say what operations on what work centers or machine centers are going to show up in what device. In my case here, I'm going to say that operations on machine center 130 is going to be on tablet 1, and the operations on machine center 210 is going to be for tablet 2. So these are filter fields, so you can use the work center or machine center, or you can use a combination of the two, and it can be any type of filter. So you can do a range of work centers or range of machine centers, or you can do everything that starts with 2 or everything that starts with 3. So a task list can be for multiple machine centers or work centers this way. Then you define what production orders are going to show up in the task list. Are they going to be firm planned and released, or just released? The most common way to set this up is to just show released production orders. So out on in production on the mobile devices, you only see tasks that are related to release production orders. Then we have a feature here where you can say that the operations to display are only where the previous operation is finished, or the previous operation have started, or any operation in the routing has started, or all. So in my case here, I'm going to do all for both of these, meaning that if there is an operation on machine center 130 and the production order is released, then it will be in the task list for tablet 1, independent of any previous operations statuses. And then we have an ending period length. So here you can define when the operation should show up in the task list. If you say 2 weeks, then everything that's going to start within the next 2 weeks will be in the task list for this tablet 1. The task lists are by default updated automatically, but there is an option here to skip this automatic update of task list. Then there is a process to manually update the task list. But 9 out of 10 cases, you want these task lists to be updated automatically by the system. And then here's an option that's more related to the time entries, which we'll come to later during this video. And then I would like to also mention that this user ID that's blank here, so when the solution is initiated, it's initiated with the blank user ID and a setup here. This is kind of a catch-all. So if you open the device and there is no match on the user ID, it will use the blank user ID. So we recommend to keep this record in the table here. You can delete it, and then if you delete it, only tablet 1 and tablet 2 users can use the application. Now when we have defined how the task list will be generated for these 2 devices, I can go to my tablet here and I have a refresh. The task list of these two queues here, we have a task in progress and a task in queue. If I click on the task in queue, I can see that they all related to this final assembly machine centers. And these are things that are queued up. So in my case here, I have 3 production orders that are queued up for me to work on. The routing progress shows me information of the other operations in the same routing. So the way this is used now is that if I'm in the final assembly, I have my tablet, I can see that there's 3 production orders in my queue, and I can see that this one production order here, the wheel assembly have started. So this is a previous operation. So I can, with this, see that out of these 3 production orders, this is the one that's most likely to come my way first, because there is a previous operation that have started on it. While these other 2 production orders, none of the previous operations have started. I will show you in a different video that there is a way to tailor these screens so I can pick and choose what columns to be displayed in the task list. But from the task list here, I can open the task card. I see the time entries and I have my options here to start and stop operation, register downtime and post output, etc. Go back on my main screen, I see the tasks in progress. So there's 2, so these should correspond to what I'm currently working on in this machine center. The operation status says that the setup have started on this and this one has been stopped. Okay. You have the same tiles in the web client, so you can use this obviously without mobile devices. You can have a workstation that displays the web client, and you have the same 2 tiles here, the tasks in queue and the tasks in progress. So the key thing here is to set up these mobile manufacturing user records to show, yes, the operations that are relevant for this device in the area where the device should be in your manufacturing. And also to limit it so that it's a useful task list. I've seen places where they implement this and then they let everybody see everything. So you have 200 tasks in the queue and you have 100 tasks in progress, because it shows everything from all the work centers and all the machine centers. Then the task list becomes less useful. So the key is to define a setup where you narrow down the tasks for each of the device. It works the same in the scanners. In the scanners you also have, let me refresh. In the scanners you also have the task in queue and task in progress. So I can click here. I see the 3 production orders here. I see the operation and the routing progress. So the routing progress for this last one here was the one that, hey, the wheel assembly have started. So this is the one that's coming your way next. Okay. This was a task list. I'm now going to continue and show you the time capture feature. So for this, we have this mobile manufacturing time capture setup. The way the time capture works is that you start and stop operations either from the tasks in the task list or by scanning barcodes that you can add on your printouts, such as the job card. So you can have a start operation and a stop operation barcode on a job card, for example. Starting and stopping operations creates time entries, and those time entries are then used to post output, to post the time into the capacity ledger entries. In this setup table, we now define the options for this. So I'm going to say edit list, and it defaults with a setup for each of the work center groups in your system. You can define this by work center, or you can define it by machine center. When the system operates, it looks first to see if there's a match in the machine center. If so, it uses that one. Otherwise, it looks at the work center. If there's a match, it uses that one. Or third option is kind of falls back and look at the work center group. So there is a hierarchy of how the system looks at the setups here. So I'm going to do a machine center setup for the machine center 130, same as I put in the task list. Preset output setup time and preset output runtime. This is when you post the output. When you post the output, do you want the setup time to be 0 and the user enters the data? Do you want it to be the expected, which comes from the routing, or do you want to be the actual? Setting it to be the actual means that the time then comes from starting and stopping the operation. And the same with the runtime. So when I post output, I want the runtime to be the actual from me starting and stopping operations, or do I want it to be the expected from the routing of 0? So with these two options here, you can use the time capture feature to post setup and runtime, or you can use the time capture feature just to capture the time, and you post the nominal runtime and setup time, or you tell users to enter the setup and runtime. So there's kind of three options here, which makes it very flexible. If you say this is going to be actual or expected, then you can define here, should they be editable or not? So when I post the output, should I allow the user to edit the setup time, and should I allow the user to edit the runtime? If I do actual, what should it be rounding to? So if I start and stop my operations, I get the very accurate time based on my starting and stopping. Do I want that accurate time or specific time to be posted onto the capacity ledger entries, or do I want the system to round it? So you can round it to the nearest, you can round it up, you can round it down. So I'm going to say nearest and nearest 15 minutes. So this way I'm capturing my time. I use the actual time to post output, and I'm telling system to round it to the nearest 15 minutes. And then what type of time do I capture? Do I capture the setup time and runtime, or do I capture just the setup time or just the runtime? If I do just the runtime, the system knows when I start an operation that it will be the runtime. If I do the setup and runtime, and then I start an operation, then I get this dialogue asking the user, what operation are you starting, the runtime or the setup time? Then we have an option here if we're allowing multiple starts on the same operation. So in cases where you maybe have a work center that represents multiple machines, or maybe it's an assembly area with multiple assembly stations, you can start the operation twice. If there's two people working on the same operation, you want to allow it to be started twice, and then you have to kind of stop it twice. So it's kind of capturing time in parallel. So this say, do you want to allow that or not? If you're not allowing it and the operation is already started, if you try to start it again, you get an error message. This is if you want to capture time outside the calendar. So if you have a calendar defined where the work center is used from maybe a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. If you start an operation in the morning and you end the operation at the same time the day after, should that then capture the 8 hours or should it capture 24 hours? So I'm going to say allow multiple starts here, and then I'm not capturing the time outside the calendar. Downtime, so the system has an option to record downtime. So when I post my output, should that include the downtime or not? So if I start an operation in the morning, I end it in the afternoon, and in the middle of the day, maybe I had a downtime. Should that be deducted from the time I posted onto my capacity ledger entries or not? We have employee IDs, so you can, when you start an operation and stop, you record your employee ID. So I want to use this one to show that feature. It's a very common option to use. I use my mobile devices that has generic users, and the employees then have to enter the employee ID when they start and stop operation. Match employee ID, match start and stop by employee ID. So if I do multiple starts and stops, should it be matched? So the same employee has to start as stop. And then allowing multiple starts by employee ID. This basically means that the same person can start the same operation twice. And then we have an option here that's not so much time capture related, but the system has a feature that can automatically print a label when you post output. Okay, so this is the time capture setup. Since I activated or flagged this requirement to capture employee ID, I need to add my employee IDs into the system. That's done here by mobile employees. And there's kind of two ways to do this. You either have a long employee ID number, and then you can create kind of these employee badges. I've seen people doing these fancy laminated badges that has a QR code that has the employee ID on it. So when the system gets used, an employee starts the operation, it asks for employee ID, so you scan this badge to capture the employee ID. Or you do like a smaller number, or maybe you already have employee IDs and they know their employee IDs, then you can use that here. But I'm going to use the basic example here with just 1, 2, 3. That's for me. And there's a way to inactivate employees in this table here. So with an employee ID like this, 1, 2, 3, you obviously just enter it on the keyboard on the scanner or on the tablet when you start an operation. If you have a longer employee ID, you can use this concept with badges or barcodes where you scan in the employee ID. Okay, with this, I'm kind of ready to start capturing time here. You can do it in the web client or you can use a mobile device. So I'm going to kind of show it on this tablet emulator. I'm going to go to my tasks in queue, and I'm going to say that I'm going to start the operation for this task here. Using my touchscreen, I say start operation. It will ask for my employee ID, so this is where I can enter it or I can scan it in. And then since I've set it up to capture both setup time and runtime, it will ask this dialog, do you want to start the setup time or runtime? I start setup time. Now I get this time entry. So on this task here, I can see that it was started at this time by this employee. Okay. And I'll go back. I can see that the task have been moved from the tasking in the queue to tasking progress. So it's here right now. Okay. And the task says that the setup time have started. When you're done with your setup, the next step is to start the runtime. So you have two options. You can stop the operation, it will stop the setup time. But if you have already started running the machine, you can go directly to start operation. You put your employee number in, and the system defaults this dialog to start the runtime. When you start the runtime and the setup time is already started, it will automatically stop the setup time and then create an entry to start the runtime. So here you can see the initial transaction that was created is a time entry when we started the setup time. And then here's the stop that we just made to stop the setup time. This indication here is saying that this has been stopped, and here's the time that was captured. In this case, it's just 2 minutes, and this is the employee ID. So now it's running, so it says run, it started. So we have now started the setup time, and we have started the runtime using the tablet interface and the functions that's on the screen. You have the same options in the scanner interface, where you can go and you can start and stop operation. The alternative to this is to use barcodes. So if you put barcodes on your job card and you have a job card that's traveling with the product, then you can use the scanners, just scan the barcode to do the same steps. So let me show you this. On the job card here, we have these barcodes. So there's one to start operation and one to stop operation. So you'll put these barcodes on your own job cards, and you can, with the scanner, I go back to my scanner interface, you can use this document barcode scan. In here I can scan the barcode for stopping the operation. It will ask for an employee ID and confirm that the operation has stopped. These barcodes are very efficient. If you have a paper that travels with the product, you just take the scanner and you scan the barcode and confirm to start and stop operations. Now we can go back to the web client. We can look at this task here, and I can see that it recorded a stop of the runtime, and it captured 11 minutes and 45 seconds. The captured time here, you can then start the runtime again, and you can stop it, and you can start it and stop it as many times as you want. And as explained previously, you can start the runtime multiple times if the setup allows it for a operation. So this way you can have multiple machines running the same operation, or multiple people performing the same operation, and capture time in parallel. The captured times are then used when you post output. So if I go back, and maybe I'll do this with the tablet here. If I go to my task here and I say post output, put in my employee ID. Now you can see that the setup time and runtime defaults, and it defaults based on the time I captured before. So this is kind of how the integration works with the time entry system and the standard output posting that creates capacity ledger entries. And I tell the system I made 50 bicycles and I post it. This is how you post output. I will be doing a separate video just about posting output and consumption using the scanners and tablets. So what you see on the time entries here is that where the captured where the time entry had some captured time, it's now said that this has been posted. So the concept is that you start and stop, it captures time, and then you bring this in to the output screen and you post it, and this gets flagged as posted. In the Windows client, you also have the option to you view all the time entries. So there is a mobile time entry page, mobile manufacturing time entry. So this logs all the times that's been captured for all the different production orders against the different operations. Who did the time entry? Was it setup time and runtime, or was it downtime? And if it's a downtime, it captures the downtime reason code. So downtimes, when you record a downtime, you have the option to say that you also have to record a reason code for the downtime. And downtimes can be recorded in two ways. You can start and stop a downtime, or you can afterwards go into the system and say, oh, we had a failure and the system or the machine was down for 1 hour. So you can go and do that after the fact. So these are time entries. They can be reported on, and you can compare kind of the actual time captured with the nominal time posted if you choose to post nominal times. To recap what we've done, we looked at the task list. We said that you have a separate user or login per device. And then there is a user setup that defines the task to be displayed in a task list for the device. And the setup includes work center and machine center filters, production order status filter on the starting date. So you can say only tasks that are going to start within the next couple of weeks will show up. It can display tasks based on previous operation statuses. So if I'm in the final assembly, I can have tasks show up in my task list based on if previous operations have started or not. The key is to narrow it down to what really needs to be displayed. So if I'm an operator and I have my tablet and I look at my task list, I don't necessarily want to see tasks that are due to be done 2-3 months from now, or tasks that's going to be done at other work centers that I'm not operating at all with. And then we looked at the time capture functionality. There's a time capture setup where we can define per work center or machine center how to capture the time. Should we capture the setup time, runtime, and or downtime? Are we capturing time inside or outside the calendar? Are we using employee ID when we're capturing the time? Are we allowing starting multiple times on the same operation? We used barcodes, so we looked at the barcodes alternative to start and stop operations in addition to using the touchscreen interface to start and stop operations. And by the way, these barcodes also works in the web client, so you can have a terminal running the web client and a scanner connected with USB or Bluetooth and scan the barcode onto the field in the web client. We posted output with actual time, so we could see when we opened the output page, it kind of brings in the time from the time entries, and that's what you post onto the capacity ledger entries. And then we looked at the mobile time entries, which is kind of the transactional table that you can use to report on. So you could have a setup where you capture actual times, but you use nominal times to post output. And then you have both, and you can then compare the actual times with the nominal times. And if you're in a standard cost environment, for example, then you can kind of use that to adjust your times and your standards. This was all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and let us know if there's any questions.